welcome back to my channel. This is Dom. Another exciting project has landed. Yeah, it's the new Hail Caesar Once and Future King supplement for the wonderful Hail Caesar rules from Warlord Games. This is the Dark Age Sagas Volume 2. Should we take a look? So yeah, rather unexpectedly, I think, for most of us who follow what Warlords are up to, this supplement appeared in the pre-sales out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it. I don't know anybody else who I game with or work with on the PCP and others was aware of it coming. So I guess well done for Warlords keeping it very quiet. They did say they'd send me a copy, but it never did, so it's obviously all part of the Secret Squirrel announcement. But, you know, I could have done a preview in advance instead of this is now on sale, so you can pick it up. And if you're going to Warfare at the weekend, I expect you'll be able to pick it up there. So what is it? Well, this is the sort of Age of Heroes period of the Dark Ages. This is Arthur, Lancelot, Mordred, all those kind of good characters that we grew up with in fairy tales. Played out on the tabletop using the Hail Caesar rules. But don't fear, it's for you unless you're unless you're into your weirdy worldy stuff. This isn't like that. This is much more sort of a crossover between sagas, fantasy meets history kind of rule set. So they deal with some of the characterizations of different, you know, lords and characters that appear in the poems and the books of the period, but they don't make them too overly powerful. So I'm actually quite impressed with this book already. If you buy it direct from Warlords, it comes with this special figure. Let me put it up. There we go. He's a rather nice fella. Agravain it is. Special book figure. I've seen a couple of people paint this one up already. Looks very nice indeed. And it's metal, which is unusual. I was expecting it to be resin. So anyway, let's have a look at this book. So it's the usual very high quality print run from Warlords. Lovely illustrations, lovely pictures. It's 84 pages long, something in that order. And I think, you know, funny enough, we were talking about new supplements down the club the other night, and I think we all agree that Warlords do supplements really well. Now, even if you're not into their rules, you can take something out of these books. They have a lot of interest around them. They build the fluff around them well. They have the history. They have lots of good pictures and some good scenarios in there that you can play through. Even if you're not particularly into Hail Caesar as a rule set. The only issue with all their Warlord sets is the proofreading can be pretty shocking. Now, I haven't had a chance to read this through completely. Thank you, Warlords, for not sending it to me early. So I'm just have a glance at it and just sort of what I've seen so far. So I haven't spotted any obvious typos or copy mistakes, but I'm sure there are some because this is Warlords after all. So what do we got? So this covers the Dark Age, basically, of Britain. So this is the tales of Arthur and all those kind of characters. You've got Hengist, Horsa, and all those fellas. And it's a really, really nice book, actually. I really like it from what I've read of it. So you've got in here special rules for the Dark Age period, including rules for heroic leadership. Utilising the allies and the effect of religion on your forces, whether Christian or pagan. You then go into the armies of Arthur, his allies and enemies, allowing you to muster your forces to the battlefields. There's two lists, one for Arthurian armies and the other one set in the Age of Tyrants before Arthur's accession. There's also army lists for Saxons, Picts, Scots, Welsh and Irish, and even some Romans, should you want to pit the Arthur against Rome, as described in Geoffrey of Monmouth's epic history. There's also two campaigns featured in this supplement. Basically, they're linked scenarios, so you fight one through to the other. The first is allows you to fight the 12 engagements described by Ninus, I'm going to butcher every single name. Anybody who knows me knows I am crap with names. Culminating in the Battle of Badon Hill. Each battle is featured as a complete scenario, and campaign rules allow you to link them. Second campaign, Pendragon, follows the action as told by Geoffrey of Monmouth. First part describes the coming of the Saxons and the wars of the British against the invaders. The next part follows the reign of Arthur, King of Britons, and his vanquishing of the Saxons, Picts, and Scots and Irish, and his subsequent battles against his foes beyond the shores of Britain. So basically this is a book about the Age of Heroes, and it's, as I said, it's a really nice book. So you've got the history, if you like, of Arthur himself, who he was, the background to Arthur as a king, then takes you through the various battles of Arthur, including some very nice maps showing the different kingdoms and different regions of Britain at the time. Love these pictures, really nice. Warlords are supposed to be relaunching some of their existing Warlord figures for this period, so it'd be interesting to see what they do with this range. I'm sure they'll expand it. Hopefully they'll expand it, because it was fairly limited up till now. Again, I would like to have got my hands on a few of these, but I haven't been able to. So right into the meat and potatoes of these rules. So obviously part of I guess the colour of this period, particularly more than any other, is that lords and heroes weren't just there as figureheads. They were there as war leaders on the whole. They led from the front. And if they didn't lead from the front, then the men didn't really follow them so well. And also they tended to lose all the respect of their peoples. Also, it meant that there's a high propensity of them being killed in battle, or at least seriously hurt. So how do the rules follow this, or how do the rules take advantage of this as a concept? So I like what they've done here. So they've said each division, it has to be led by a named heroic commander chosen from those allowed for the force list, or a generic one. One of these heroic commanders will be the army general. Named leaders are unique, and only one of each can be in your army, of course. So yeah, you couldn't have two Arthurs, etc. Heroic commanders must be attached to a unit in their division at the start of the game, and they must stay with it for the entire game until either they are killed or the unit is destroyed. So that's how they get around that's how they get you into the kind of heroes leading from the front, putting themselves at risk, leading their men. They have to be embedded in a unit. Heroic commanders move along with their units in the command part of the turn, and can issue orders to any other unit within their division, both before and after they move in this way. Now it doesn't actually make it terribly clear what the range command radius is. I assume it continues to be the normal command radius, because otherwise it wouldn't matter whether it's before or after they moved. It'd just be anywhere within the division. So I'm assuming it's just normal command radius rules. But it does mean you have to think about your how close you are within your division, so that your units stay within the sort of command radius of your heroic leader. So none of this sort of flinging them off all over the place, because the hero can go off or the general can move off and get within command radius for next turn. He is at the front, usually leading his men, or at least close to the front, leading his men. So you need to have his division, his battle around him fairly close. Moving along with the unit in the command part of the turn doesn't compromise the heroic commander's ability to move away from the unit subsequently if it's destroyed. This makes sense. So basically a heroic commander could get two moves. So he moves up, charges into contact with the unit he's with. They get defeated and destroyed. He survives. He can then move away to find refuge with another unit. A player must test to see whether the general is killed or wounded. If the unit to which he's attached is shattered, he must immediately be attached to another unit in the division should he survive. There you go. You have to be attached to a unit. A wounded heroic commander who receives an additional wound must roll a dice, and on the result of 4 or more, he is killed. Heroic commanders can only issue a follow me order to the unit he's attached to. If the follow me order is failed, the unit can still make a free move unless it was blundered. So the unit still makes one move together with its commander, as I say, unless it's blundered. A heroic commander may issue a rally order to any unit within 12 inches, but he stays attached to his original unit and is not placed with the one he's attempting to rally. The heroic commander, who is the army general, can still issue the order of "Where is your courage?" to a unit within 12 inches, but again he stays attached to his original unit. A further thing about heroic leadership in these supplements: loyalty is about kinship and personal obligation between leader and the led. So every unit in the army must take an immediate break test if the general is removed as a casualty from the battlefield. Apply the results as if it was a ranged attack break test for units not engaged in hand-to-hand, and from a hand-to-hand combat break test for those engaged. Similarly, every unit in a division must make an immediate break test if its divisional commander is removed as a casualty. Note, these tests interrupt the normal flow of play and the results are applied immediately. So you don't wait to the end of the turn, you do it immediately. Kind of like that. That's kind of cool. So how do they play allies? Well, you can have an allied force that corresponds to your army list. So the book here dictates who can ally with who. So as long as it's an acceptable one, you can field one or more allied division, but you can't have any more than half of your total number of divisions as allies. So example, a Saxon army consisting of 4 divisions can have up to 2 allied, but they can be mixed. So in case of the Saxons, they could be Picts, Irish or Scots. So you could have 2 Picts, or you could have a Pict and an Irish, or you could have a Scots and an Irish, how you wish. They have the same thing. So they have a heroic leader that has to lead them, and they have to conform to all those heroic leadership rules we've just talked about. But one of the things you have to be aware of is that the allied division acts as a normal division, apart from it can't take the general reroll from the CNC, and also the units in the allied division cannot be subject to a general advance order given by the general to the army they're allied to. So in Hail Caesar, in the new version, there is a rule that allows you, the CNC at the first turn, to issue a general advance, which means the entire army moves one, if it's successful of course, moves one command forward. So the allies can't do that, they would have to die separately. Allies in the allied division cannot be subject to "Where's your courage?" order given by the general and the army they're allied in. So they have restrictions. So you have to work out whether it's worth having an ally or not. They give you different troop types and different options, so I guess that's where it comes into it. But religion is also an important consideration when you're building your army. Your army can either be Christian or pagan. The hatred between the two faiths in the period is so intense that if a Christian unit is fighting a pagan unit in hand-to-hand combat and vice versa, it gains 1 attack against its hated foe. If the allied division is of a different religion from that of the army it's allied to, the allied division's commander rating is reduced by 1, as troops are reluctant to fight for followers of a rival faith. So you have to be very careful when you're composing your armies based on the religion. So here we go. This is the Arthurian British army lists. You don't have to follow, completely religiously on this. Religiously. But it gives you a scope of how the army should be composed. It tells you each division has to be 4+ units, has to be 50% plus infantry, can have 1 bodyguard unit, which could be infantry or cavalry, Skirmishers, it can have up to half the number of units in a division can be skirmish units. Gives you the different troop abilities here, so you can see a standard British medium infantryman, clash 6, sustain 6, short range 3, morale save of 5+, and stamina of 6. And then there's options to downgrade it to a levy, upgrade to veteran. You've also got your bodyguard, you've got your skirmishing light, you've got your skirmishers, you've got your formed light infantry bowmen, you've got some heavy cavalry, and you've got some light cavalry within that list. Now, also, each army has its unique abilities, shall we say. So it tells you the different, well, we'll come to the commanders in a minute, heroic leaders, and each of those are in the book. You choose which of the commanders you want to be the army general, and then for each of the division in the army, you randomly determine which heroic leader, heroic character is leading each of the divisions using the Gathering of Heroes on page 18. British are obviously Christian. You have an option for Merlin within the game. Now, this is an entirely optional rule. You have to have both players agree to do it. And at the start, you roll a dice at the beginning of the battle. On a roll of 5 or 6, Merlin joins the army for that battle. If Arthur is the army general, then you add 2 to that roll. There's also, again, if people agree, ladies of the Arthurian court, Arthur's court. If the players agree, roll a dice before the start of the battle for each of the 3 ladies: Guinevere, Morgan Le Fay, and Morgause. You can see the details later, we'll get to them. On a roll of 5 or 6, one of the ladies is present at the battle. If Arthur or Lancelot is in the army, add 2 to Guinevere's roll. And there's various other options for the others as well. Allied-wise, the British can have Welsh allies or a single Scots allied division led by Fergus Moore. So there you go. Here's your commanders. You got Arthur, Agravain, Bors. You can see them all. There's loads of them here. Here's your random dice determination to see which ones they got, and each of them have a special rule attached to them. In some cases, 2. So if you take Arthur, you have Caliburn. Once per game, at the conclusion of a hand-to-hand combat involving the unit joined by Arthur, Arthur may draw the sword Caliburn, and that unit may immediately engage in another hand-to-hand combat. This initiates a new engagement which is worked out immediately, with both sides fighting as normal combat round. Arthur and his unit count as charging for that engagement, representing the renewed vigour that Caliburn inspired amongst Arthur's warriors. He also has a special trait of trained for war. The unit joined by Arthur gains the drilled special rule. And each of them have these. So Bedivere, he has trusted hand of God, hand of the king, sorry. A unit joined by Bedivere can re-roll all failed morale checks. Bedivere can only use this special rule once per game. So there's a number of these. You can see Galahad here. What's his special rule? Famed Gallantry. A unit joined by Galahad gains the elite special rule. Gawain, same again. He has Wax and Wane, so that's not such a good one. Gawain's strength waxes and wanes with the passage of the sun through the sky. At the start of the battle involving Gawain, roll a dice. The score reflects Gawain's fighting value for that battle, so it could be 1 to 6. Gawain is also a healer, and at the end of each turn, if a unit joined by Gawain has any casualties, roll a dice. A 6, it removes 1 casualty. So they're not devastating, but they are pretty fun, and I think they'll add something to it. So you can see here, this is the whole chart for the Arthurian British special characters. You can see all their different special rules. You've got their leadership rating, so Arthur, unsurprisingly, is a 10. Galahad is an 8, etc. And also their fighting value, because remember, they're fighting with the unit, so they're in there amongst it, fighting out. So they range from 4 down to a 2. although obviously Gawain has the ability to have a 5 or a 6, because depending on what he rolls. Then here's Merlin. So as I said, this is a special rule that you don't have to apply. It has to be done at the agreement of both sides, and it's a chance thing. It doesn't always happen. But if he's with your army, he has to be attached to Merlin has to be attached to the army CNC throughout the game. He, if the general is removed from play, Merlin makes his escape and vanishes. He has two special rules. Sorry. When rolling dice to determine which side takes the first turn of the battle, an army containing Merlin counts as automatically winning the dice roll. So you can go first in the battle. So it's not devastating, but could be useful. He also has the power of illusion. So while he's on the table, once per turn, he can force an opposing player rolling on the blunder table to roll 2 dice, and he gets to choose what the result should be of the 2 rolls. So that's kind of cool. I like that. That's kind of fun. There's the ladies of the court as well. Now, Cynic would say this is to encourage you to buy the ladies of the court figures from Warlords, but they also have some advantages. So Guinevere's presence can inspire men to turn adversary into advantage. If a commander in the army containing a Guinevere suffers a blunder, the player controlling her can choose the result of the blunder table rather than rolling for it. So that could be useful. You've got Morgan, she has different things. Morgause has others. Nothing dramatic, but they all add a little bit of fun to the game, and definitely a bit of period themery. And then we move on to the armies of the Age of Tyrants. So this is before Arthur, basically. It depicts the kingdom as being divided amongst the various warring petty kingdoms and petty lords. Again, you've got the same basic principle. You've got your different army types. Well, it tells you there's slight differences to the troop types. So you use the other army composition, but you have different leaders, and you have different changes to the troops. So you have unwilling warriors. Unlike the Arthurian time, British infantry of this period were either unwilling to fight or untrained in the art of war following the collapse of the Roman rule and departure of the legions. All British medium infantry units in the Age of Tyrants must be levy and cannot be veteran. So you can still get Merlin. You can't use ladies of the court anymore, and the allies are slightly different. You've got the different commanders here, again, all with their unique skills again. And I like all this. I think this adds something to the game, without a doubt, without being terribly powerful, which I think is good. And you've got the Saxons, again, bit of detail on the Saxons and where they came from. Tells you about the composition of their forces, what troop types they're allowed to have. You've got the Saxon Gesith, who are kind of the bodyguards, who are the real brutal fighters, the professionals, if you like, within the army. Here, let's have a look at their infantry. 8, 6, 2, 5+, 6 stamina. They have shield wall and tough fighters, which is pretty darn tough. And their standard infantry are pretty much like the English ones are. So it tells you again the composition of how many you're allowed of all these different troops, and the different division composition exactly the same as they did with the British. Also, again, each division must be led by a heroic commander of some sort. You can select one, and or select a generic one if you wish. They are pagan, so that changes the kind of composition, and as I said before, if they're fighting against Christians, they get the +1 as the Christians do on them. But also it means the one generic Saxon heroic commander, so not one of the named ones, he can carry a pagan icon, which have special attributes, so we'll get to those in a minute. They also have a special army rule of no retreat. For a Saxon leader to remain horsed indicates that he intends to flee if necessary. No true warrior will follow such a coward. Saxon commanders must be attached to infantry. So no scumpering off in the background. Oath of loyalty, so Gessith warriors swear an oath of undying loyalty to their commander. Any Gessith unit with an attached commander may re-roll its break test. Shield wall, we'll talk about that. There's a modification of the shield wall that's in one of the previous books for this, especially for this book, which I think works as well. Brings again more of the flavour to the period. Their allies, they can have Picts, Scots, or Irish to fight alongside them. Here's your pagan icons. You've got Loki's charm. You've got a runic warrior weapon, all sorts of different things. So you've got the Raven banner. Again, not devastatingly strong, but they give you something nice. So if you're carrying the Raven banner, must be carried by a unit warrior in the unit attached to the commander who possesses it. Once per turn, that unit may re-roll all the failed attack dice. This doesn't apply to attacks added by the attached commander himself. So basically, just the unit gets to re-roll all failed attack dice, which is pretty powerful. So having said they're not powerful, that one is. Unlike other icons, if the banner is lost, if the unit is carrying it is destroyed. It doesn't remain with the commander if he survives that battle. So each of them is slightly different. Loki's charm is a pretty bauble, utterly useless, unbeknownst to its wearer. So, you dice for this, you don't know what you're going to get each battle, but it could be fun. Here's the shield rule special rule. This replaces the one in the, I think it's the Dark Age book, has this rule. So units in shield wall move at half speed. They deduct 1 from their combat values, but add 1 to their morale rolls. So their attacks go down, but their sort of saving roll, if you like, goes up. Also, they add 1 to any break test dice result from hand to hand. So they got more chance of sticking around. So you form wall, you say, shift me if you want. Shift me if you can, probably. There's all the various Saxon commanders. Again, same as the Arthurian ones. They have certain abilities, some of which are better than others. So Collar Green, he has Oath of Destruction. Collar Green is pledged to exterminate the Britons. Against Arthurian, British or Welsh enemies, a unit joined by Collar Green has the Fanatic special rule. Ouch. There's their different attributes, their leadership ratings and their fighting values, and tells you what their special rule is. Here again is the Picts. Again, exactly the same process. You've got the army list, you've got the composition of the bands, you've got some special rules for these. They can have a Druid. If a unit in a division is led by a Druid, if a unit in a division led by a Druid is shaken, you can activate the Druid special rule, order the unit to stand fast, and then test for success as normal. So basically get a reroll. If successful, the unit discards all of its casualty markers except for 1 and can make a move forward. That's pretty useful. It has the Seer, Curse of Ancestors special rule. Once per battle, a Seer can down a curse on the enemy commander who's about to test against their leadership rating, and the commander suffers a -1 to their leadership rating for that test. Could be very nasty. They can have the Saxons and the Scots Irish as their allies. They can also have a special unit called a War Dog, which can be 1 cavalry unit and 1 warband in the army. Can include war dogs at no extra cost. They are basically released during the take break test phase after combat. They force the opposing player to re-roll any single break test resulting from that combat chosen by the player releasing the dogs. So they can only be used once per game, and you should model them by having a little dog behind the unit to denote that they've been used. So kind of a little fun thing. They have a special special druid as a leader if they wish. Dressed, I'm not even going to try and say that name. But he has a special rule of bloodthirsty. A unit joined by dressed has the eager special rule. Then you've got the Irish here, the Scots here. Their different army composition. They don't have quite so many special rules. They have the Druids again. They have the same Curse of the Ancestors special rule. So I guess they get that within that. But they don't have many special heroes or anything like that. So they tend to be just generic heroes for those armies. Apart from Fergus Moore. He was king of Dalraya on the west coast of Scotland. He has a special rule of, which I really like this one, Raider King. All units in Fergus's division gain the Marauder special rule. So they basically can operate beyond command radius. So lots of really good stuff. More and more special commanders here. You've got the Welsh army here. So the Welsh have the Holy Icon special rule, which allows them to select or dice on this table for various options. They can have things like the image of the Holy Virgin. A unit attached to the commander carrying the image of the Holy Virgin gains the Eager and Fanatic special rule. That's pretty brutal. There's your troop types again. You've got the Tulus, who are like the bodyguards again. The professional troops, if you like, within the Welsh forces. They're tied to the different lords. Who are particularly effective. They're stubborn and have a tough fighter, which is pretty pokey. They have the heroic last charge rule, which I really like. The remnants of a Tulu unit that break in hand-to-hand combat may make an immediate last heroic attack on their enemies using half their sustained combat value, rounding fractions up before being removed from the table. So they go down swinging like that. Then you've got the Romans. As I say, they taken the book by Geoffrey of Monmouth, or the series by Geoffrey of Monmouth, as inspiration for this. So if you wanted to fight against a Roman army, you've got the same thing here, and they're different attributes and commanders. And then you've got the war leaders of the Romans. Notice the Golden Eagle standard. It was basically it was set up as a rallying point for his troops, and Lucius automatically passes his leadership test when giving a rally order when you've got the Golden Eagle standard. Kind of fun. So there you go. More of that. Now we're on to the different battles. So these are the linked battles that you can play through. So this is the 12 battles of Arthur. You can play them individually or link them through, and they've got rules for casualties and wounds to generals and all that kind of good stuff down here, which I like. You've got a bit of history around where these battles actually took place if you're interested. Again, some lovely pictures. Look at these pictures, beautiful. And here's the map showing you where they actually were. For me, River Bassas is probably the closest, apart from when I'm up in Ludlow when some of those come into play. And here's the different scenarios. Again, clearly laid out. Haven't played any of these, so I can't say. I know some of the supplements. I've had a little bit of a hard time with Warlords in that they sometimes leave out some crucial things like who goes first and, you know, things like where certain units should start and that kind of thing. So I don't know how good these are because I haven't obviously played any of them yet. But they appear to be quite clearly laid out. You've got the tell you what forces you're allowed to use. Bit like the bolt action approach, so they don't impose certain forces. You can basically determine your army how you want to play it, and also the size, the points, I guess, depending on how many troops you've got, which is a good thing, I think, rather than forcing you to have to build an army of certain size that you're never going to use again. You've got the special rules and the different terrain for these, and the objectives, of course. Yeah, look good. And these are, as I say, you can play these singly or linked. Pictus crossbowmen. Did they really exist? To discuss. Like that one with the fort. That kind of looks fun. Some of these I think are going to be great fun, and of course you can always, the beauty of these supplements, as I said before, you can take them and apply them to your own ancient rule set or Dark Age rule set if you wish, or you can modify them for different periods. Nothing to say you can't. This is the other campaign, Pendragon. Again, you've got the various battle options here. It's set up slightly different, but you can see the different games that they're suggesting, and again some beautiful pictures. And this is the final one, the part 2, Age of Arthur. These are the other campaign battles that they suggest you can play solitary or link them. Which I love this. There's loads and loads of options here. Really good indeed. So that's about it really. Here's the actual layouts of those games, and gives you the outcomes of the campaigns there. 0 total devastation. The Scots, Saxons and Picts exterminate the British race, and Arthur's dismal rule is forgotten in the mist of time, rather like England rugby. There you go. Beautiful book, really like it. I'm looking forward to having a go of this. It will be interesting to see how it compares with there's a certain other rule set that's coming out at the same time, roughly covering the same period. Again, utilising the idea of heroic commanders without making them too amazing. So just sort of, instead of being sort of superheroes like they are in something like the Lord of the Ring games, I think in this game, and also the other one, they're probably going to be more sort of, I guess they're supercharging a unit or two, but without being absolutely devastating. But they remain a focal part of the game, an important part of how you field your forces and thinking about how you run your armies. So I think it's pretty good. So I'm looking forward to having a go of these. Looking forward to painting up this dude. Looks a nice model. I've got loads of Dark Age figures, but I may have invested in a few Saxons, because some of the newer ones are so much nicer than the older ones. So looking forward to getting more with this project. Hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comment section whether you're interested in playing this, whether you're going to get a set, whether you really not your thing. Also, I'm interested to know if you, like me, use different supplements for different rule sets, even though they're not designed for it, just and adapt them slightly, because I find that really good inspiration for some of my games. Thanks to all the new patrons and channel members. Really appreciate you joining along, and really appreciate the support, as I do everybody else who clicks like and subscribes to the channel. Always amazes me how many people do that and watch these videos. Thanks for doing that. Makes an old man very happy. Anyway, enough from me. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all again soon. This is Dom.